And welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of A Slice of Golf. We are still on lockdown here in the UK. So, gentlemen, what have you been up to besides absolutely nothing? Timbo, any golf practice?
Square root of fuck all from me, I'm afraid. No, I've not done any practice. I've not, to be honest, I've not even had the putting mat out in the last week. But I mean, that's not to say I've not had a little bit of a think about what I might do, because I think when we did this last time, when we had the first lockdown last year, there are a few sort of panic bells going off in my head about, oh my God, am I going to lose all my swing thoughts? Am I going to lose all the kind of the flow that I had before? And I think where I am now, look, first round back, first hole was absolutely disaster. And then I think I finished on like 30, 31 points. So it's kind of a case of, look, I've been through it once. I'll go through it again. That said, I'm not going to treat it as the next 3, 4, 5, 6, however many weeks it turns out to be, doing just absolutely nothing at all. I'm just kind of thinking about potentially just working on feel and exaggerating some things I'm trying to do in my swing, because basically one of our mates got a golf net recently and we've just been sort of pelting balls into a net. Now I get that. It's great. It's great to be, physically hitting balls. But obviously the thing with a net is, other than the feel of the strike, there's literally, you don't get any feedback whatsoever. Yeah. So you could be slapping that ball thinking, oh, the connection wasn't great, but see it hit the net and think, okay, fine, that was fine. The reality is maybe you go to the range and you hit a shot like that and it just ends up being a massive duck hook, or is high and weak, or all these things. So ultimately I'm just being a bit like, look, it'll be what it'll be. I'm going to work on just doing some muscle memory things and just trying to change my swing a little bit, just because there's a few things in my swing which, for example, I very rarely fit, like my finishing position is pretty much never where a normal golf shot should look. Basically, I very rarely finish with the actual club, like, balanced behind my back, fixed posture. So yeah, I think I'm going to do just some focus on just really, really working through just muscle memory, doing the swings, exaggerating some feelings to try and build them in.
No, I like it. I think this is something we're going to come on to later on. And this kind of question, this is what fueled me sending you over that question earlier on, which yeah, like I said, we're going to dive into later on. But yeah. Christopher, what have you been up to?
Oh, I've done absolutely nothing. Yeah, no, I've carried on my trend of doing absolutely nothing. The only thing I have done is, I can't remember if I'd done this by last week. I've recently got back into a bit of goal setting and kind of getting clear on what I want to achieve, not just in golf, but in kind of everything. And this week is supposed to be my week of actually doing some exercise, and the first session is supposed to be tomorrow. So currently, I'm quite confident it's going to happen. So we'll see by end of play tomorrow. I haven't bought my resistance bands yet, Ben. I know you were talking about those last week, but I do have some dumbbells, so I'm gonna use those, and I don't have a kettlebell yet either. However, I'm quite excited about buying those. I know I'm going to get in so much trouble because I have no idea where to put them. I have nowhere to actually store them. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So, no, in short, no, absolutely not done, absolutely nothing. But Tim, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I hadn't really thought of that. But yeah, I was in the same place. First lockdown, I was like, oh my God, I was just getting comfortable with the new swing thoughts, whatever. And now I'm just like, I'm much more like, it's winter. It's not that, sure, I would have been working on my game. Am I that fussed? I'm like, nah, everyone else is going through the same thing. I'll be fine.
It's a bit like, worry about what you can control at the moment. There's no point worrying about, am I going to go back to the range for the first time in March or whenever, and it's just going to be a shit show and I'm just going to shank everything. You know what? Chances are the first 30 balls you hit, yeah, they probably will be shit. But ultimately, there's nothing you can really do about that, other than, as we've said, work on muscle memory, work on doing what you can do. Ultimately, hopefully, most people that have been out post the last lockdown have got to a position where there might have been a bit of a bump in the road immediately after they've come out, but hopefully a lot of people will have, and certainly in the evidence of like the group that we play in, which is, you know, the best part of 20 people, you wouldn't say there's anyone in that group who, off the back of the lockdown, has just completely lost the plot at all.
No, I think the only annoying thing for me was, I mean, for everyone who's listened to this for a while, I've had an absolute shocker of a year when it's come to golf. And I guess the slightly annoying thing for me was actually, I was actually starting to feel with the swing as we came into the new lockdown. So that's the only slightly annoying thing. But I feel much less worried about it. To be honest with you, I feel much less kind of stressed about it. Quite.
I echo that. I think at the moment there's not a part of me that misses actually being out on a golf course, just because you look out the window and it's been wet and cold recently. And given that's where I'm kind of thankful. I went and played that round that I spoke about last week. Went and played that round in between Christmas and New Year, where it was just like a swamp, because that kind of left a bit of a, all right, let's just bypass winter golf, get me back to summer golf. And the chances are now the next time we get to play golf is going to be in the spring. There's a high chance of that. And I've considered getting a net, but at the same time, it's like potentially going to be short-lived. Now, I kind of dashed back to my parents for lockdown, just because my flat tenancy was up, so I essentially moved out. It's kind of funny note of what I've been practicing at home is mum keeps having a go at me because I'm walking around the house getting the old practice swings in, setting the wrist at the dinner table, and she's looking at me like, "What the fuck are you doing? You got to sort that."
I saw an excellent video earlier of a guy who's just got out of his canoe with the oar for his canoe on the side of the beach practicing his golf swing. I was like, that's classic. We've all anything and everything that can be used as a golf club will be used as a golf club for a practice. That's a genuine fact.
Not picked up a golf club since lockdown, but everything else has been. Brooms, everything. Right, you'll be forgiven if you did miss it, because it was on at silly hours in the morning for the UK chaps. The PGA Tour event that was in Hawaii, did you catch any of it?
Highlights.
And Tim, I don't think you did you?
I didn't.
No, so I my gym isn't open. I typically live back in London, so I am back at my parents' house. So I caught it because I'm quite a big NFL fan as well. So I was jumping between the golf and the NFL. It was on in through the middle of the night, and I kind of saw the final few holes last night, and Kevin Na was on fire. He was excellent, and he was up to his old tricks of putting it, and I swear to God, it was about 2/3 of the way to the hole, and he was already chasing after it.
Just imagine having that confidence.
I was watching it thinking, I don't think I've ever played with someone in that, and not in a competitive environment. I would love to know what it does to the confidence of the other person, thinking, shit, this guy knows exactly where that ball's going. He's got complete control of the ball. It must be quite demoralising, because Brendan Steele, who was playing with him, was playing well, and then kind of fell off. It was a phenomenal scoring. I don't know whether you saw the final scoreboard, but 10 players at 18 under or better.
Yeah.
And the winning score was 21 under. So you think 10 players within 3 shots, that's pretty good going. That's a big pat on the back for all the players up there.
I've got 2 stats to share, which have actually quite blown me away. The first one is Kevin Na, right? It took him in his first 369 starts, he got 1 win. In his last 55 starts, he's had 4.
That's huge.
So clearly the dude is like figuring out how, like, it sounds really silly, doesn't it? But figuring out how to win. Like, he's always been a good player, but now he's clearly doing something. I don't know what's happened. I don't know if anything's changed over the last year, but to have 4 wins in your last 55 starts when you've had 1 in the previous 369, that's for me, that's quite mind blowing. So that's interesting. And actually, a player I feel quite sorry for, but is just unfortunate, is Neiman. Have you seen his scores over the last 8 rounds of golf in Hawaii?
Ridiculous.
So over the last the last 2 competitions have been in Hawaii, and over the 8 rounds, he is 45 under par. That is, and he hasn't won either tournament. He's come second in both, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've just got to be like, what on earth else do I need to do to be able to win a freaking golf tournament? Like,
did you see him finish out yesterday? He looked absolutely shattered. It looked like it had been a brutal 2 weeks, which I can imagine being in contention. It'd be quite draining. But chip in on 18 was brilliant. Another player that I wanted to give a shout out to was Chris Kirk. I don't know whether you saw or heard it. He was playing for his tour status, and he needed to come, I think it was like tied 5th or better, and he set the clubhouse lead with like three groups to go. So you come in a tie for second on 20 under par with Neiman, which I think when you're literally playing for your career, to pull it out the bag and, you know, give himself a chance to win it was huge.
Yeah.
Up next, anything else from PJ, boys?
No, those are the two main talking points that I wanted to dive into. But no, again, all it made me want to do is at some point in my life go and play golf in Hawaii. So that was something that I was keen to do. I don't know what's happened to Tim, but Tim seems to have disappeared. So me and Barrett will carry on the conversation. But yeah, all it made me want to do is go play golf in Hawaii at some point in my life because it just looks amazing.
Yeah, it does. It looks such a beautiful place, doesn't it? And I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it just happens to be one of the tournaments that I just seem to watch every year. But for me, they're quite memorable and not iconic. Iconic, probably not the right word, but I can pretty much map that course that they played out the weekend, as you know, in my head, just due to I haven't watched it so many times, and I thought it was beautiful. Up next for the PGA Tour lot is the American Express tournament, which is in La Quinta, California, which probably another beautiful part of the world, and I'm assuming a lot better weather than what we've got here. But I mean, I'm fairly sure Tim will here. He's back. He's back. Tim's back in the mix. I'm fairly sure Tim is going to want to kind of jump into this as well. So I'm glad you did come back. Some big news coming out on the PGA Tour, and well, he's actually playing in the European Tour event this week, but on the PGA Tour side of things, from a gears front, after his homophobic slur after missing a putt, JT has been dropped by Ralph Lauren. Chris, now I think we can all agree what he said was bang out of order, and it's no great surprise that Ralph Lauren decided to make that decision. It's happened in the past. And companies want to protect their brand, which I rightly get. But the reason why I say, Chris, is you found something that kind of, I don't really know how to put it.
Yeah, I first of all, I think what's been really, really interesting has been the reaction to this. And I think if you look, again, I often use Twitter for my guiding, where are people's thoughts on this? And it is really divided. And I think there's a lot of people in the camp of, he was angry, it wasn't aimed at anybody, what's the problem? And I actually disagree with that. Like, I actually think, well, the problem is the word he said is you just can't say that under any circumstance. So it's not appropriate. So, and it's not about, people of, what's the word that I've seen thrown around? People have been talking about the whole quote unquote cancel culture. People have been talking about, what is the word? I'll think of it in a minute. But basically just, people calling everyone soft now. And I'm just like, that's just not the case. I'm like, you just can't use language like that, and it's just not acceptable. Like, don't use it. Like, it's not difficult. Don't use it. If you're angry, as we said last week, he could have sworn. He could have sworn on TV, and that would have been okay. Like, yeah, they would have apologized. Ralph Lauren wouldn't be ditching him right now. So, and I agree with you. It's not a surprise that they've parted ways with him over this. However, they've done it in a way, and I can't take credit for finding this. This is, again, it's all over Twitter. It's all over everywhere. To say that we have brand values that we stick by, and we can't have a representative of our brand saying that, I'm like, I agree. However, according to various sources, it turns out lots of their, and actually this is not uncommon, lots of their factories are in countries where being gay, homosexual, the LGBT community is illegal. Like, it's punishable by law, to the point of, I'll find where is it? I had it written down somewhere. Bangladesh, for one example, they apparently have factories. It's life imprisonment if you are found to have had sex with another guy. Egypt, I'm not sure. I've just seen I've only seen it mentioned once. They've got factories there, but that was apparently 3 years in prison. Indonesia is, get this, 8 years in prison and 100 lashes. Who knew lashes was still a thing? That's like ridiculous. And for me, to be able to say we have brand values that we stick by and get rid of a representative, and I don't disagree with that, you can't then follow that up with, but we're okay with having factories in countries where it's deemed illegal to be gay. And that for me, I was just like, it's quite hypocritical, I think is the word that I would use.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know all this for fact. I've gone in and done some research and looked at where it is, but it seems to be it's been talked about on some fairly major publications. So it's just, I feel like you can't have both sides of it. Do you know what I mean? You can't just go to the money side of it.
I was shocked when you sent that over. I understand they need to take a stance on it, but I do also feel like it's a bit of an own goal, because had they given them a slap on the wrist, possibly a warning, then all of the other stuff wouldn't have got dug up. I mean, it's probably a good thing that it has been dug up, so then people can hold them to account and be like, no, well, hold up, you've made this stance, why are you not, filling it yourself? But that's a tough one. When I saw that, it didn't sit right, and it was odd. Really.
And let's be honest, it's not just Ralph Lauren that are using factories in the countries. Like it's not just them, and I'm not pretending that. I thought it was interesting that they would take such a strong stance with such a high profile individual, and yet in their own business be dealing like as you said, Ben, it didn't sit right with me. And I was just kind of like, you can't have it on both sides, if you see what I mean.
And also, I don't know whether he literally is not allowed and he's banned from wearing Ralph Lauren. I would assume not, because shortly before coming on air, I was just scrolling through Instagram. Something popped up on my feed that said he's still planning on wearing Ralph Lauren this weekend, because he is playing in Abu Dhabi in the European Tour opener, which is huge, and we were kind of going to come on to in a second. Tim, I don't know whether you had anything to weigh in on.
So I think, and look, by no means am I an expert or the voice of the sure, ultimate qualified voice on all of this, but look, I think what this whole situation kind of highlights is actually two super important things. Now, the first thing to highlight is what JT did. Now, this is symptomatic of microaggressions, casual discrimination, and a lack of awareness around those things, right? And ultimately, more needs to be done about education in all countries, all levels, professions, because it's not, you can't use words like that in a discriminatory or derogatory way. He will not have any idea of what that community has had to go through.
For sure.
Okay. So there's an education job that needs to be done there. Now, what could potentially have been done was potentially through JT or Ralph Lauren, or a combination of both, was an effort on that about where phrases like this have come from and why they're unacceptable, and why they're so hurtful to communities. That would have been quite impressive for them to do that, because ultimately this whole thing just provides there needs so much more education around, as I say, casual discrimination, microaggressions, and things of that nature. Now, the other thing that it's opened up is in terms of brands. Look, it's all very well pitching yourself to be for equality and freedom of speech and supporting all communities and all people, but you can't do it halfway. You've got to practice it as well as preach it. And if Ralph Lauren, off the back of it, had said, we're reviewing all of our practices, all of our factories, all of our manufacturing techniques, all of our associations. Then what came to light, you'd say, okay, they've realized an error and they're looking into it. Whereas what it seems like they've done, and again, apologies, I've not read this in detail, I don't know the full facts. What it seems to have happened is they've taken the decision to say, right, he said this, we don't agree with it. I'm going to give them, I'm pretty sure they don't agree with it and we don't want to support it. Therefore, we're just going to stop that. Yeah. And we're going to put out this message about where we are as a brand. Brilliant. But if you're going to do that, do it and do it properly and preach it and review everything. Don't say one thing whilst you're manufacturing and supporting the GDP of a country who, discriminates further. Okay. So ultimately, I think it's just a massive, another wake-up call that just so much more education and awareness is just needed about these kind of casual sayings that just, look, if you wound the clock back 60 years, were they said? Yes. At the time, did people accept it? Yes. That doesn't mean it was right at the time. Yeah. And it doesn't mean it's right now. Yeah. And hopefully where we've got to is a position where people can learn about it, understand it. There's, if you want to educate yourself on this, there is so much reading material out there. There are so many books, there are so many films, there are so many documentaries. I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity is where I actually come out on it and come on. You two as a player, as an individual, and as an organization are in such a power of position to actually take this and say, actually, what we're going to use this forum for is to educate.
I actually, I thought about this, but not the way you've explained that, Tim, is really good. I think education is going to be key, and it's kind of, instead of just coming out and being like, it's like telling someone off and not telling them why you told them off. Like, do you know what I mean? And it just leaves you in a situation where you're like, I'm utter confusion, or, I mean, there's less confusion around this one, but it's kind of like you're just leaving the whole kind of place in what I don't understand. What's the step? What's the process? What's going forward? How's this going to work? And I think education would have been really strong. I'm also surprised there hasn't been more from the PGA in here's what we're doing about this. I thought there would be an immediate, almost like gut reaction from them on, okay, this is not okay. Here's what we're doing. This is, again, it's highlighted something. Here's what we're going to do moving forward. And I would like to see more, not just around this particular situation, but more in general around the education of this and all of that. I think it'd be really strong. I think that would be a strong move.
I have to admit, I'm slightly surprised Ralph Lauren did cut him out and leave him out hanging to dry. I thought it was such a good opportunity to be like, right, we are introducing this education program and he's going to be the face of this. That would have been the right thing to do ultimately, and would have been such good PR for the company. And instead, it's just unearthed the factory issues and all that stuff.
It's a knee-jerk reaction, isn't it? Someone in PR at Ralph Lauren has had a knee-jerk reaction, has committed to a plan, and they flowed through, and they've not. It's just, the outcome is what it is now. So, it's just been interesting watching the events unfold. That's all.
Where is he in the world at the moment? Is it number 3 ranking?
Yeah.
2?
Yeah, 3.
I mean, he's not going to be a free agent for very long. It'll be interesting to see who picks him up and if they look to try and do something with him, because it's big potential there. Yeah. Right. Anyway, kind of moving on. Talking this week, big event coming up because it is the return of the European Tour. Yeah. The boys are heading out to Abu Dhabi. For those who you can probably picture it, it's the club with, I want to say, is it an eagle?
An eagle. I'm sure it's an
eagle. Yeah, it's an eagle. Yeah. It's quite a picturesque, I guess, clubhouse. Quite a memorable finishing hole, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Don't know whether you two have seen the field. Now, obviously, it gives a slight indication if someone like Justin Thomas is coming over to play. I guess he's coming over as well, get away from the pressure of being in the States. But if he's coming over, he's not coming over for a small little event.
Oh, I mean, he would. I mean, a player has their season planned out well. Like, this is not even just reacting and coming to Abu Dhabi. This would have been in his diary for a while, I'm sure.
Fair enough. The list of just a few players that are playing this week, which I'm definitely going to be glued to: Tommy Fleetwood, Hatton, Rose, Poulter, Rory, JT, Lowry, Stenson, Westwood, Keimer, Fitzpatrick, and there are many more players, which I'm not going to list the whole field, but both Rasmus and Nikolai Højgaard are going as well. So we'll keep
back on.
keep an eye on those two. I've got a feeling I'm going to be glued to this over the weekend. Got a few bits to move from the old flat, but I can't wait for that. Particularly to see kind of how they're all getting on. The European boys, it is Ryder Cup year, so they're all going to want to get off to a big start, and it's a pretty good place to go out and play golf. Right, keeping on trend with the European Tour. I set these two a challenge earlier on, in which we're going to review. Following on the trend of last week, we're going to set some things that we're going to review at the end of the year. Now, we're focusing on the European Tour because it does return, and in particular, focusing on the race to Dubai. So I kind of said to these two, right, who's going to win it? Who's going to be someone who you possibly don't know a lot about, but is likely to challenge, or you think is going to challenge or be up near the top of the leaderboard and contending on a fairly regular basis? So we're looking at players between 50th and 100th in the world rankings. And then, after the Højgaard shout from last year, a European Tour outsider to keep an eye out for. So any players on the European Tour that are currently outside of the top 100. All right. So that's a favourite to take the trophy. Someone in between 50th and 100th, and then outside the top 100. So we've got 3 picks going on there. And they're 3 players that, well, I know my picks. I'm going to take a close watch of these over this year. Mr. Williams, I'm going to come to you first. And we'll go with just the pro that you think will win it, first of all. We'll all name those.
We're going to go round?
We'll go round the circle.
Okay, fine. One at a time.
Who's going to win the Dubai, buddy?
So I had a bit of time to look into this, and I've gone just beyond sort of their on course sort of, if you like, results, and just other reasons that might factor into it. Now this particular player,
they're getting married this year. It's going to be a good year. They'll probably have their first kid. Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, if you wait, I'll tell you. So basically, this player is moving back to England from America.
Interesting.
An interesting development because he wants to. I think he's reaching 40, or he wants to be back in the UK and spend more of his time here. Justin Rose is moving back to England. He's going to be based in the UK, and therefore kind of will theoretically be on the circuit a lot more. Yeah. I think after we talked quite a lot about, you know, his how he had a bit of a dip with his changing equipment a couple of years ago, and how since then he's kind of come back into form a little bit. So I'm actually going to put an outside tip on Rosie for a run at the championship this year. I mean, we saw, you know, Westwood just did an unbelievable job last year. I reckon we could see something similar with Justin Rose this year. I really do.
Quite like that. I appreciate the research as well. Finding out these moving house, so it was excellent.
yeah.
Really a commitment to the course.
Moving to.
Yeah. Mr. Wright, who do you think, mate?
Yeah, so I'm the only slight worry I have about my pick is, will they play enough on the European Tour? Like, will they play for European Tour events this year? A mixture of, I know they're going to be playing on PGA, COVID situation. Like, it's just, I'm a bit unsure. However, I am going well and truly all in on a bet that I had last week with our top 5 picks and our major winners, because ultimately, if he's getting into the top 5 and he's winning a major, this guy will do it by winning the race to Dubai, and that is Tyrrell Hatton.
Nice.
And that kind of follows on from me last week, because there's one way he's getting into the top 5, and that's by playing some outstanding golf this year. So and Ryder Cup year, I think, helps with that. I think he'll.
The thing is, I think with how good Hatton's been, the only thing that might let you down on that is he is pretty much set to be going to the Ryder Cup. It's going to take a mammoth collapse for him to not make it now, and he might see, I want to go and play in the States because I can earn a little bit more cash than what I can in Europe. That might trip you up, but
yeah. And as I said, I think my biggest downfall with that will be that he doesn't play enough events in Europe.
Cool. No, I do think that's a pretty solid pick. Rounding out the 3, my pro, I think, is going to win it. He came second last year by the skin of his teeth, won the final event. I've got Matt Fitzpatrick. Just any time I watch the guy play golf, I look at him and I'm like, you don't look like you're much older than school level, but you can hit it pretty well. You are a phenomenal golfer, and you actually can hit it, a fairly long way. So I just think it just, I don't know. Anytime I switch on, Fitzpatrick never seems to have a bad tournament. He just seems to just grind out results. So I think this year's going to be his year. Right. Someone who's currently between 50th and 100th in the world rankings, so you think you'll contend and be knocking on the door. I'm going to come back to Mr. Wright. Christopher, who are you going with?
I'm really excited about these next two picks. So this guy, it turns out, I'd already selected him. Turns out he was Rookie of the Year last year after I started doing some research. And that is Sami Välimäki. And he came onto the scene and has just had a really good season. He had 1 win, 1 second place finish, and 5 further top 10s. I can't remember where on the actual Race Dubai rankings he was, but and those events I have a feeling were not the sort of the high profile events. But every time I kind of switched on the European Tour event, his name was being mentioned. The commentators were talking about the highlights. He was always there, and I was always a bit like, who is this guy? Like, what? Where's he come from? Rookie year, that's why. So I'm 68th in the world rankings, and assuming he stays and just plays a ton of European Tour events this year, I think he'll do really, really, really well. He kind of played. I'm sure he played like 17 events last year, and like there was the likes of Patrick Reed who played like 6 and were like 3rd, and then there were also people that played like 24, 25 events. So I think for him to be marching up that leaderboard and be only having played 16, 17 events, I think he's definitely going to be my Välimäki watch this year for sure.
Nice. I like it. Timothy?
Okay, so the guy I've picked to be a bit of an outsider, but I think is definitely one to watch. He's not actually necessarily the youngest guy on the European Tour, but he's had an 8th place at the PGA. He's had a 23rd place at the US Open, and he's had a 17th place at the Open. The only thing that could potentially stunt progress this year, again, COVID. Eric Van Rooyen.
Yeah.
Years as well.
Has been on the periphery for quite some time, and if you look at his kind of standings within sort of the Race to Dubai and rankings, they have sort of, they've always been creeping up, and he's not played huge amounts recently, just because I think he's either due to obviously pandemic, maybe not been able to travel, but he's quite clearly got some caliber, and I just think it's an interesting one. I think I just feel gut feel more than anything, if I'm honest. But I think he is one to watch.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Now, my guy is 81st. I couldn't believe that he was 81st in the world rankings. I went with Thomas Pieters. I've seen a few videos of him recently, just on social media. It sounds like he feels really good about his game. And after seeing what he was doing at the US Open, when he looked outstanding through the first 2 days when Bryson won it, I just kind of feel like it's going to be quite a good year for him. And I mean, I said it before we went on air, I could not believe that he was 81st in the world rankings. There's someone that I was very close to picking, but I didn't, because he is currently 50th in the world. And I thought, well, he's clearly been in good form. Was Robert McIntyre, a lefty from Scotland.
Robert McIntyre was on my list.
Love watching lefties, but I was just like, no, he's 50. If he's there or thereabouts, we'll go a little bit lower. So I started looking down, and Thomas Pieters' name jumped out. So yeah, right, gentlemen. Tim,
just for the record, I'm not backing you with that one.
Okay, mate. Timothy Williams, outsider to keep an eye on. Now, this is someone who's currently outside the top 100. This is typically going to mean they're probably a little bit younger and kind of coming up. It doesn't necessarily need to mean that. Who are you going for to keep an eye on, Tim?
So I will be completely honest. This is a slightly sort of, if you like, romantic pick, just because English, and obviously he's been through some stuff in the last few years. But actually, as well, if you look at his rankings and his positions on the Race to Dubai across last year, you will see a gradual incremental rises all the way through. And that's Matthew Southgate. Again, not a young guy, absolutely not a young guy. But I'm just watching that. I'm just watching those performances sort of ticking up. And I say incremental gains. He is English, so I'm always going to be slightly tempted to pick an Englishman. But yeah,
nice.
Like yeah, my guy is another second year on tour. So rookie season last year, I believe. Currently at 108th, and that is Antoine Rosner. Last year, had 1 win, 1 second place, 1 third place, and 3 more finishes in the top 10. Had a good season. Again, obviously not the big events, otherwise he'd have been flying up the Race to Dubai leaderboard. But I still think to get a win, to get some top 10 finishes in your first year on tour, puts you probably mentally in quite a strong place. Yeah. So I just think there could be some good golf to come for him.
No, I think good logic. I do kind of like that. Now, I went completely the opposite to Tim. I went for players that I think have got, might actually go and do it rather than kind of being kind of patriotic about it. I've got 2 names. One, I think it's probably going to be no great surprise. Højgaard, but it's Nikolai Højgaard. So he is the brother of Rasmus. Rasmus had a great year. They are twins. There is clearly a lot going on in that family, and I just can't help but think Nikolai at some point is going to heat up.
Hold up.
Wait. He's currently 530th in the world. He's not my pick, but I'm saying just keep an eye out. I think Nikolai is at some point he's going to start heating up. Just got a feeling, because they were hyped to be similar sort of level. He's just not hit the heights yet. But my pick is probably great. Go on, all right.
What I was going to say is you can't have a go at him for picking someone based on, he's English, and then you go pick someone because he's someone else's brother. Like, come on, that's not like, where's the... You've got to be fair in your own.
Yeah, let's not also pretend that just because they're someone's brother or sister, that puts them on an identical pedestal. I mean, if there's one thing history has told us, Kylie and Danny Minogue, not the same thing. Tom and Ben Curry. One is arguably the best back rower player in the world. One guy hasn't played for England yet. So...
shut up. I'm just saying watch out for him.
That's all you can say. All you've got is shut up. That's all you've got.
He's not my pick. Right. My pick is probably no great surprise to either of you two. He has been pretty big on kind of Instagram because he hits the ball an absolute flipping mile, is Wilco Nienaber. He is currently 160. Huh?
He's outside the top 100.
He's 162nd in the world rankings.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Because he's like 20. He's a young lad. If you haven't seen him, it is a Cameron Champ-esque kind of swing. Smooth, it's beautiful, and it goes an absolute flipping mile. And I just kind of think if he can keep the ball straight, I'd rather be him with a wedge in my hand than half of the field 30, 40 yards back down the fairway with an 8-iron in my hand. So just got a feeling that he's going to fly up those world rankings. How close he gets to the top, Race to Dubai, who knows? But I went with Nienaber.
That's a good shout.
All right, though. It'll be interesting to see how they get on. I think there's some pretty good picks in there.
We're reflecting
now,
on
we're
those.
kind of talking about...
See how they've gone on.
Yeah. all of them just go woefully wrong. Yeah. Wildly. Like terrible seasons.
In a mad twist of fate, Tim Williams was right. Cyril Hatton plummets and doesn't make the Ryder Cup team. And
Imagine. Disclaimer, he will. He will.
I really don't want to see it. I love to. I think it'd be great in the Ryder Cup. Now, kind of talking about players who are looking to improve, drive up the world rankings. It's something that I touched upon right at the start of the podcast. These last few days, been a little bit reflective, I think, just because I've got so much time on my hands. And I started kind of jotting down, right, well, what do I want to improve this year? What do I need to improve to get better at golf? And then how am I going to go about doing them? Floated it with you guys, and then you two were like, actually, there's something in that. Now, to not go overboard and start listing our 55 things that we want to kind of announce that we want to improve, I set the chaps just 3. Pick 3 things you want to work on, and kind of the justification as to why. Tim, I want to come to you first because you and your research kind of inspired me.
Likewise, can I just say, I immediately wrote down my 3 things, and then Tim responded, and I was like, "Oh shit, I've got to go deeper. I've got to go to a new level." So I'm super excited for this.
Okay, so to be honest, so there are 3 things, and I'm just going to get the first 2 out the way because the third one is where it gets a bit more interesting, basically. So the first 2 things. First one is, this won't be a surprise to anybody that listens to this podcast whatsoever, is to reduce my average putting strokes per round. That is just number 1 target this year. Currently, I average 37 putts a round. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. So thankfully, the marvels of having apps and scoring yourself, you can track performance. So I want to get that average down to 33 or 34 by the end of this year. That's the target to get that down to. And the second one is
just two seconds. Bit of context for anyone who hasn't listened to too many podcast episodes before. What handicap are you currently, mate?
18.
Okay, cool. Carry on.
And the second one is to improve my greens in reg. So currently, I'm at 25% on average. Again, not good enough. I want to get that. I've looked at other rounds I've been on and how well I can play. So the aim is to get that up towards more of a 35% by the end of the year. So I want to get those 2 just out of the way and done. That was just based on kind of stats. The third one, it started off innocently enough, and then it absolutely sent me down an absolute wormhole of stats and investigation. So basically, where I started this off was thinking, when I'm playing, par 3, par 4, par 5, where is there anywhere I'm leaving, shots out there, leaving mistakes, areas for improvement? So for context, I think my last 20 rounds, my average scores on a par 3 is 4.1. On a par 4, it's 5.3, and on a par 5, it's 6.1. So that got me to thinking, okay, well, maybe I should be scoring. Should I be scoring better on par 3s, as an example? Should I be getting that number down? So I went and did some research and got in a bit of a wormhole, like I said, and I sort of stumbled across this source of data, which basically a study had been done across people's scores on par 3s, par 4s, and par 5s. And basically what it threw out was actually quite interesting, was that across all handicaps that were included in this study, par 4s were universally where the most shots were added in scores at every handicap. So and actually dramatically higher than a par 5. Par 5, what it came back was the whole where across any handicap, scoring tends to be better.
Yeah.
Par 3s are actually pretty close to par 4s. But basically the idea being here that if you can score better on par 4s, whatever handicap you are at, you will improve your handicap faster than by scoring better, than by concentrating on par 3s or par 5s. So I won't get too far into the data. We'll post this, by the way. We'll post this on the group and on the social, and we'll put some visuals out there just to kind of show these stats. But just to kind of demonstrate what I'm talking about here. So for a 26 handicapper, the average score on a par 4 was 5.63. All right, so 1.63 above par, if you like. Compare this to the 26. The average for a 26 handicapper on a par 3 was 4.49. So 1.49 higher, still pretty high. Par 5 average score for a 26 handicapper was 6.12. So only 1.12 over par. So it is actually quite dramatically different for a par 5. Equally, for a 2 handicapper, the average score that comes out on a par 5 is 5.02. So literally pretty much par. Compare this to a average score on par 3s for a 2 handicap is 3.34, so getting higher. On a par 4, 4.39, so getting higher all the way through. So basically what this threw out for me was simply get more consistent with par 4s. Now, obviously, that's a really simple thing to say. There are obviously different ways for different players. You're going to go around improving your scores on par 4, whether it be keeping your drive in play, nailing your approaches, but maybe there's just something in it for players out there to stop necessarily firstly stop thinking about par fives with this sense of dread. Like you get to the tee and think, oh God, we've got a long par five coming up. Actually, what you should be thinking is, oh, actually, odds on I'm probably going to score okay on this hole compared to the par four we've just done. So yeah, just an interesting little wormhole and data reveal I went down there.
No, I like that, and it ties in with a point I was going to make later on, but it's particularly relevant now. I think only in the last year have I come to understand why pros look so annoyed and disappointed when they par or bogey a par five. I think it's as you play a little bit more golf and you get a little bit better. Even myself now, I'm a little bit disappointed if I walk off a par five with a bogey. Now that's setting myself unrealistic expectations. But all the commentators say that's where the opportunities are, is the par fives, where you're potentially going to make up some shots, and those kind of stats back it up. And it's kind of that as well. Seeing that actually made sense. Mr. Wright?
Yeah. So as soon as Tim responded with an actual proper answer, it sent me down again. It sent me down this whole rabbit hole because I was literally like, here are my three things. Here's what I'm going to do. And then I was like, and then Tim sent in stats. And I was like, oh crap, okay. With an actual answer that has remote kind of viewpoint. But honestly, this is a discussion in itself because I was literally like, here are the three things I'm going to work on. Obviously, this is what I need to work on. And then I dove into the stats. I was like, maybe they aren't the three things I need to work on. And so that for me was a real interesting kind of look at this. And there's actually two things that I want to note. First of all, this is going to end up sounding like a freaking advert for Arcos, the stat tracking app, the things that the sensors that go in the top of your clubs. It's not meant to be. Up until I think I stopped using it in like January last year because some of the sensors started running out of batteries. I've had it for a few years now, and so it wasn't picking up shots, and I couldn't be asked to filter in all the shots and blah blah blah. Anyway, I logged back in today, and it's had a worldy of an update. It looks unbelievable, and I will post some screenshots of this because not only does it give you like strokes gained, or in my situation, strokes lost, based on like stats of the obvious things like driver distance, accuracy. It also does it by shape of hole, and so you've got dog left, dog leg right, straight. Guess which one is my worst? Dead straight is my worst.
Dead straight the worst. Brilliant.
Quite significantly. Strokes gained minus 1.4, minus on the left, going dog leg left, minus 1.6 going right. Dead straight, loss of 4 shots. So strokes gained minus 3.9. So over the course of a round, that equates to something apparently I think it says like 7.8 shots. So straight holes are a disaster for me, it turns out. So dog legs all the time, please. However, that does tie in beautifully well with one of the first goal I wrote down was driving accuracy, because I've always thought, we always joke, I don't hit the ball a massively long as as Fowlis or whatever, but my biggest thing is not being in play. And so that's what's now a year and a half, 2 years ago versus even this year, I just used Golf Shot to track. Even on Golf Shot this year, I was looking at it going, I hit on average 43% of fairways, missed 22 right, 34.8. No, sorry, 22 left, 35 right, essentially. So I'm missing a lot of fairways, and I know that when I miss fairways in a way that I don't have a second shot. Yeah. It's not just, I'm 2 feet off the edge of the fairway and I've still got a shot in. It's, oh crap, I've got a tree in the way, or oh crap, I have to come out sideways type thing. So and it's not just, and my initial thought was, we'll just use a 3-wood, just use a 4-iron, but it's not even that. Like, it's literally whatever club I use off the tee, the accuracy is poor to the point where I know I put myself in trouble. So that was interesting. I even had a round when I played Camberley Heath, 35.7% in the fairway, 32.1% left, 32.1%. I was like, what do I do with that? Like, what? And that's what I'm struggling with. It's not like I'm missing right all the time. Yeah. it could be left or right, and that I really, really, really struggled with last year. So for me, number one is tee shot in play. That is the number one thing for me to work on. And then I started going deeper. I was like, okay, so in my head, I wanted to work on short games. I think I said a few podcasts ago, I was like, my short game used to be like fire, and I'd absolutely love it, and I'd always give myself a chance at a one putt. And actually, when I look at the stats on Arcos, in fact, the Arcos actually shows, Tim, you'd freaking die over these stats. It literally gives you your top 3 insights. It says, here's what you need to work on, but it also says what's helping you. And these 3 things made me laugh. What's helping you? Number 1, sand shots from 0 to 25 yards. Number 2, sand shots from 25 to 50 yards. Number 3, shots from the sand. So basically, a year and a half ago, put me in the sand and I was having a worldie. I can't tell you if I haven't used it this year, so I can't tell you if that's the same or not. But the other 2, I'd put short game as a thing for me this year. I don't have any stats to back that up. And I'm now going to remove it from that. I'm going to add it to my practice, but I'm not going to say that's one of my goals because I don't have any data to say I need to dramatically improve that.
The thing is, it's not a bad thing to have on the goals list. Even if you don't have a defined target on it, you know when you're chipping well. You know when you're putting it close.
Yeah.
Your putts per round will also reflect that.
Yeah.
And I think it's something we're all guilty of, is not practicing enough on our short game. So
yeah, I think the next thing that the number 1 thing according to Arcos is my short putts, 0 to 10 feet. So 0 to 10 feet of putts, I'm minus 4.8 shots. So that's a huge amount of shots that I'm giving away. And I even said in my data, it doesn't tell me whether I left it short or long, but I know I left it short because everything I've really fucking short drives me nuts. So that goal. Say that again.
Very tepid golfer.
Yeah. So goal number 2 is it is quite simply within that 10-foot range, I need to be draining more putts, at least giving them a chance. So that's goal number 2. And goal number 3 is, where have you gone? Approach from 130 to 170 yards.
You got any stats on that?
Basically, it's my approach in from most fairways, right? It's my approach game. Anything under 100 yards, I'm super confident with right now. Or 110 yards in, I'm kind of.
Have you? And I'm going to put you on the spot here. Have you got a current last 20 rounds green and regs stat there?
I can give you probably from.
Because by just bumping that up, that will naturally bring your what you're looking at and what you're describing just then. That will naturally bring that up, right?
Yeah, correct. So green and reg 24%.
Okay.
And that's why I feel like I need to improve my short game. But actually, if I just hit more greens, but again, it's kind of that. It all stems from the beginning, right? If I don't give myself a chance to hit the green on my second shot because I'm in the freaking trees, it's irrelevant, right? So, but assuming I then improve my driving and give myself a chance, I know let's call it 150 to 170 yards. I'm nowhere near as accurate as I feel I should be. Yeah. And I still feel like I'm in the bank of picking a club less than I should. And I'm missing it short, not long, left or right.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think it's.
So those are my 3 goals.
I quite like them. I agree with them.
Like this, I'm genuinely considering rebuying my Arcos sensors because this is.
I remember when you first got them. I think I was too shit at that point to really appreciate them. But I think now, knowing what they do bring, it's definitely a good investment to have because it will tell you exactly what you need to work on, as you've just said.
Interestingly, Timbo, this is coming back to yours, and I looked at Golf Shot from last year. So Golf Shot, which was tracking my stats from last year, scoring on, where are we? Par 3s, par 4s, par 5s. Par threes, I'm 4.1. Par fours, I'm 5.4. Par fives, I'm 6.5. So par fives are my worst. And again, I'd put that down to both distance, partly, and not being in play. And I think if I don't give my shot on a second shot on a par five or even a third shot on a par five, I'm in trouble. And I think I too often lose balls off the tee on par fives. In my head, I'm just kind of thinking back. And I thought, oh, was that the same 2 years previously? And par threes, I was losing 1.1 shot a hole. Par fours, I was losing 1.2 shots per hole. Par fives, I was losing 2. So par fives are notoriously, luckily there's not as many on a golf course as par fours, but I'm losing shots on par fives quite clearly. So that for me is a goal for me. And that I think will come with driver keeping the ball in play. Well,
definitely. I agree with that. I kind of, it seamlessly goes into what I'm looking to work on. And I actually had this one as my last, but I'll bring it to the top based on what you've just said. And comparing my stats, looking at my last 20 rounds, I average 4 strokes every par 3, 5.1 strokes every par 4, and then 5.8 strokes every par 5. Now, my one goal on that, based on what I said a minute ago, although it may seem to head down Tim's route and say, well, the par 4s are actually where I've got the biggest dispersion of like how far away I am from par. But my goal is to improve my par 5 scoring by making better choices. Now, if I'm stood on any par 5 playing off the yellow tees, I feel fairly confident that I'd be able to reach the green, most greens in 2, with driver and then a hybrid or an iron or something. Sometimes a little bit further away, miss hits or whatever. And I always like to think I'm Tiger Woods. So by me, my goal of improving my par 5 scoring by making better choices is if I don't hit it how I like to think I do and stripe it down the middle, if you've got 240, 250, don't try and be Superman. Don't try and go for it, because that is where I'm typically losing quite a lot of shots of sticking them in the trees or putting myself in a really difficult position short of the green, right of the green, or tucked behind trees and stuff like that. So, like I said, last 20 rounds average 5.8, and my goal is to be a lot closer to 5. As I said earlier on, it's clicked on me in the past year why pros get annoyed at when they play par 5. So if you think about it, it's 3 shots to get to the green on a 500-yard hole. When you break it down into 200 yards, 100, it's not that difficult. But I make it difficult for myself by smacking it everywhere.
And I think the difference is, Ben, the pros often can comfortably reach in 2, and they know they can reach in 2. I think the big potential gain for us, for our level, is, and I think this honestly summed up. You remember we did the 4 club challenge back in, when was that, September?
Yeah.
And I took 4 iron. I can't remember what my other clubs were. 4 iron, 8 iron, and a wedge. And on the 2 of the par 5s we played, I think I had 1 birdie and a par. And it was because I just went 4 iron, and I had 100 yards in. And I think the difference for us will be that third shot. Sure, get it as close to the green and in a position to play as possible. But I think the difference for us is getting it on the green on the third shot with a potential putt. And if you can get onto every par 5 green in 3, you're giving yourself a chance for a birdie. I know that sounds really silly, and I think too often what I'm guilty of is not necessarily even going for the green on my second shot, but just trying to bite off more than I can chew. I'm trying to take on a bunker that I'm just like, there's just no need to take on that bunker, so just leave it short, and then just give yourself an easy approach. And what do? I mess up the second shot.
And that's the final line that I wrote to kind of summarize the point: is par is a good score, particularly. I know I hit a good drive, and I might have just north of 200 yards or 240 yards, and I'm like, cool, if I put it close, I can make eagle here. And then you end up inevitably making bogey or a double or a triple. Whereas in reality, par is a good score. Even if it means nudging it down there, that is going to get you points, and ultimately your handicap's going to drop. So, yeah, that was goal number 3. Now we'll come back to the top. Probably no great surprise to you two or anyone who's listened to the show is putting. Literally hit thousands of putts in my lifetime, yet it's the one shot I'm still, doesn't matter where I am, how close I am, how many rounds of golf I've played recently, it's the one shot that I'm just consistently nervous being stood over. Doesn't matter whether it's 3 feet or 20 feet.
Out of interest, what's the nerves? Like, what's your thought? What are you thinking?
I think it's just consistency of my stroke. I feel like every stroke I do is different. I have a putt out mat. There is literally no reason for that. I practice quite a lot. I think it's definitely something which is going to impact it, in the sense that a putt out mat is not a putting green. It's not the same. It doesn't. Yeah, you can replicate it from yeah, that's it. You can replicate it from a stroke, getting it smooth and consistent, but can't quite manage that.
Okay. But, let me ask you this: on the putt out mat from the longest distance, how often do you miss the hole?
Very rarely.
Like, go left or right of it. How often do you go left? Not short, left or right. How often do you miss it?
Probably 2 in 10.
Right. So do you
not even hitting the ramp?
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. One. Let's say 2 in 10. So do you feel, when you're stood over a putt, do you feel and your stroke, are you worried about it not coming off straight off the club face, i.e. you think you're going to miss left or right because of a shit stroke, or are you more worried about a line you've actually just set up to the you read it wrong, or you've left set up wrong?
I know for me, I'm pretty confident once I've got the line that I'm like, I've set this on the right thing. I'm confident in my green reading. It's the stroke. I just can't get it. I'm just not sure what it is. I benefit from having some pretty good friends who give some pretty generous gimmies at times, because I feel like there's probably a couple of shots in there that would be added on to rounds.
Noted. Okay. Force play all putts in any competitive rounds, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's a situation. I was trying to work back. I was like, right, where do I feel most confident? I was like, right, typically stick me in the middle of the fairway. Irons, pretty confident. Wedges, fine. Anywhere from 60 to 100 yards. Even on the tee with the driver, as much as it's not been great recently, I still feel pretty good. I was like, where am I most nervous? I was like, on the putting green. And then because of what Tim said, I was vaguely looking at my stats anyway, but then because of what Tim said, I did dig in on what I should be targeting. So my last 20 rounds, I'm currently averaging 34 putts, which isn't all that bad. But at the same time, like I said, I have played some round with some mates that's pretty generous gimmies. Maybe that would creep up to 35. Who knows?
Single figure handicap, you want to be, aiming for a single figure handicap. So you want to be in the 29-30 range, don't you, essentially?
Yeah. So I kind of did just a little bit of reading, quick search on the Google. Golf Digest suggests average putts per round for the average golfer is 34. So that puts me as an average golfer in air quotes. But a quick search online, the average male golfer plays off 17.2. I'm currently off 11.9. So there you've got a gap, which I should be better than that at my level. So straight away I was like, well, my number one goal before I'd even checked the stats, that's vindicated. That's kind of, suggests it needs work. I'm just too often missing short putts. There's no two ways about it. My goal is to get to the point where I'm challenging breaking 80 pretty much every round, which is a fairly obvious goal once you start to get towards single figures. And everything I've seen online is between 30 to 32 putts. So I'm like, well, that's 2 putts a round. All right, if I start doing that, I'm currently averaging 83 to 86 strokes if I play my standard game. Well, there's 2 shots there, so I'm already getting closer to 80. And I think big thing for me is getting out and practicing on putting greens and not just knocking putts for fun at home on the mat, because it's not real. It's a bit difficult. Don't have a car, live in London, but I've just promised myself that I'm going to get to golf courses even earlier when we play golf now. So rest assured, I'll be there hour and a half before doing me putting drills.
Well, here's the interesting. So I've just sort of sat and listened and jotted down a few points where we've talked about what we want to achieve in the next year or so. And we've talked a lot about short game, putts, thinking your way around the course, not getting worried about the outcome, probably with putting, probably a bit of that. None of us have said increase handicap as which is interesting, because that's, if you like, that's actually a fairly arbitrary goal.
Yeah.
Like, think about how you get there. None of us have said I want to drive the ball further, which. But But where I'm going with this is, right, so given that those are our goals and we've said how we want to improve, and consider, if for the people who are listening to this, consider what goals you might have along these lines. Where I'm going with this is, in terms of how you get better at these and how you improve on them, how many of these things are you going to improve by going to the driving range and getting 100 balls out?
Yep. 100%.
And yet, what is absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, the first thing that us three and pretty much every golfer out there is going to want to do within hours of any restrictions getting lifted?
Hit
down that driving range.
Hit bombs on the range.
See, for me, I think the short game stuff, obviously not. For me, off the tee, I think there's two sides of it. I do think there is a feeling comfortable with my swing, and actually, even on the range, I'm a bit. Even if you get my stats on the range, it's like left, right, like. So I think there is a bit of technique work that I would have to do on the range. Part of me genuinely thinks it might be psychological, like a 4-iron off the tee versus a 4-iron off the fairway. And I would bet a lot of money that I'm more accurate with the 4-iron off the fairway than I am off the tee. And so part of me wonders, is it literally just standing on the tee box and there's a psychological thing there that I need to deal with? Probably. But yeah, no, it's interesting.
You can't go with the pressure standing around your mates. All up here, mate.
Yeah, sure. Maybe.
Do we need to get James back on? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
We should.
Finish off goal number 2 with me was sandwiched in between is consistency of strike with driver, which I can actually work on the range. I've not felt great recently with it. Previously, I was with no hesitation. It was step up to the tee, driver's fine. Had a lesson in September, which we've spoken about kind of multiple times before. So I started looking back at the stats. So given that we had one lockdown, I think I got in 5 rounds in between the last lesson and kind of now. Last 5 rounds stats, 54% of fairways, 21% left, 24% right, which...
Question. Does anyone actually looked at what the pros, like what a scratch handicapper or a pro is doing at fairways hit? Do we know?
I haven't today.
If not, I'll Google it quickly while you carry on. I'll Google it.
So, and then I compared to, like I said, I driver was just my go-to club. I would happily pull it out of the bag. And there was kind of, when I look back at the all-time stats on the app, and there was good reason for this. So I previously had hit 66% of fairways with only 12% going left and 21% right. So this is where the lesson, because we completely changed my setup to how I hit my driver. I used to hit down on the ball, which if I could hit it consistently, which I could, it was fine. But there would occasionally be the odd squirty one that we went way right. Now fixing that, I'm now hitting more up on the ball, but it's causing me to question what I'm doing. So it's going left, it's going right. So for me, it's just, this is the time where it is just going to take reps because I've got the drills to be using. I've just not done enough of it. And I guess I've got a bit excited and just gone to slap it. But that's where, this is now where I've just made myself to 80. Because if I'm averaging 83 to 86, I'm sending 1 or 2 absolute howitzers into the trees, never to be seen again each round because I've got very little control of my driver. Well, there's my additional 2 to 4 shots. So yeah, goal was consistency of strike with driver. Righty.
Well, I like that. What was just remind me what your percentage of fairways hit was?
Currently, last 5 rounds is 54.
Okay. So interestingly, and again, my level of research here is I've typed into Google fairways hit by handicap, and I've clicked on the number 1 thing that came up. So there's not been a huge amount of research on this. However, the graph that I have got here is to be a single figure handicapper, you would be hitting, again, this is just random stats, but not random, but just kind of a guide, if you like. A single figure handicapper would be hitting 56% of fairways. So you're not far off.
It's not far off, but like I said, the lifetime of using the app, I'm hitting 66% of fairways. Like I said, I would pull driver out, no question, and be confident in it. So
66% of fairways would be a 3 handicapper, and a +1 will be hitting 71% of fairways. And again, this comes back to the thing that I said earlier. The big difference for me is I might be hitting 49% of fairways, but the fairways I'm missing so badly that I don't have a second shot. So that for me is kind of bring that dispersion in, I guess, would be important. But yeah, that's it. I'm keeping to aim for 100% of fairways hit. That would be lovely, but if you're doing that, you're on the tour basically.
Yeah, that's it. It's keeping the misses so that you're not losing balls and costing yourself unnecessary shots. That's the goal, and then also getting that confidence back. Right, we've got a lot to work on. We'll have to revisit this sometime in the summer, or give us a few months to work on it.
Yeah,
out of lockdown, but then actually revisit where we're going, because I've got numbers on where I want to put myself for all of those, so I can literally say yes, I'm on it, or no, I'm not. Yeah, this will work. Right, to round off today, something a little bit fun. It's what Tim did last week. It inspired me, so I just did a bit of scratching. And I was like, right, what can we come up with for the lads? Now, 2012 was a historic year for British and European sport. I'm going to lay this one on thick, boys. This intro.
I'm already like, I'm out of this. I
feel like you're like Sue Barker and stuff.
We're just going to take us back in time. The London Olympic Games, massive. Rory McIlroy won the PGA Championship by 8 shots at Kiowa Island, by the way, which is where this year's tournament is.
Yeah,
that's a complete side note. Bradley Wiggins became the first Brit in history to win the Tour de France. Andy Murray was in tears after he lost to Roger Federer at Wimbledon, and then went and won the Olympic gold 3 weeks later. And the best club in world football won the Champions League. There was also this little-known golfing event that took place, the Ryder Cup. It was held in the United States at a golf club called Medina. I think you can probably remember it. Now, unless you live under a rock or you're a patriotic American trying to forget the occasion, you will know exactly what happened and how we won it. Martin Keimer drains the 6-footer. But from you two, what I want to know is, who were the 12 players that played for Team Europe?
Okay. 2012, Miracle at Medina. I'm now trying to go back into my Sky Sports history views. Keimer. How many years ago? 7 years.
McDonald, 8 years.
8 years.
Rory, 3 for 3.
Sergio.
4 for 4.
Rosie, yeah. Would that have been? Did you say Westwood?
No, but he is. Yeah, sorry, you haven't said it, but he was on the team. Yeah,
Westwood, Poltz.
Yeah.
Oh, you're on fire.
I think we've got it. It's going to be the younger ones that we're.
These are the 4 that I've actually got at the bottom of the list, because I've tiered them and like, when are they going to get them? And these are the 4 that I was.
So 8 years ago, when Medina wasn't the dodgy brown outfit, was it?
There were some pretty bad outfits.
Because I have a memory of Thomas Peters being in that horrible brown outfit. Was he 2012 or is 8 years ago too?
Who?
Thomas Peters.
Thomas Peters, no.
Oh, Henrik Stenson?
Henrik Stenson, surely.
Henrik Stenson not on the list.
Shit.
No. Interesting.
There was another Swede, which I do not think you will get, because I did not remember him in the team as a golfer.
Was it Olesen?
No. I'll give you this one because I don't think you'll get it.
Wait, give me a clue.
I wouldn't even know. I don't know what the guy looks like. It was Peter Hansen.
Peter Hansen, yeah, okay.
Okay. Right, 3 more. One, actually, you should get this because he's been pretty big in definitely the most recent Ryder Cup.
Graham McDowell.
Yep.
Shout.
Actually, to be fair, you've now got 3 to go. I just missed him out. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
Pretty big in the most recent one.
He was good mate with someone who's got long hair.
Molinari.
Yep.
I didn't realise he was in that. How many have we got so far?
You've got 10 of the 12. The final, you've got a Scotsman and you've got someone from Belgium. Someone at the time from Belgium who hit the ball an absolute flipping mile. It's knocking on a bit now, but I don't think
you say Scott.
The Scot.
No.
Not Monty.
No.
No way, Monty.
It is someone who has recently retired or moved into the seniors. Got 3 seconds.
Bollocks.
And what's the Belgian golfer?
Paul Laurie, you missed him. Scottish.
Paul Laurie was in it.
Laurie was in 2012.
Yeah. You forgot about Paul Laurie.
Belgian.
The Belgian guy has been around, seems to have been around for donkeys, European Tour stalwart, never really hit the heights in any of the majors, didn't really win anything big, was just always up there, was always on the TV. White flag.
Drawing a blank here.
Nicholas Colsaerts.
Yeah, okay.
I had him, but I think I was so sure he wasn't in until the next one.
Sorry, I'm actually really impressed, and because I'm just so excited because it is Ryder Cup year, I was like, "Wow, let's give him some bonus point questions." Disclaimer: not really
6 or 7 there within about 12 seconds. So well done, Timber.
Not really too sure what you're winning, but bonus questions are fun anyway.
I'm okay with that.
The lead, just to rub it in just a little bit more, what was the lead that the Americans had heading into the final day?
Was it 6.5?
I think it was bigger.
Bigger.
I feel like it was literally ridiculous.
What is it? How many points are on the final day? You've got 10 points on the grabs for the final day.
12 points.
12.
I genuinely, I think it might have been as big as 8.
Yeah, I've got 8 in my mind, but I thought that was too aggressive. Let's go with 8. Should we go with 8?
Yeah, go with 8.
4. 10-6.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
There had to be quite a big swing. You got to think we had to win 8 matches. They only had to,
Yeah.
So
yeah, but how many? What? Don't worry. I was going to say, don't worry. Well, we're not going to go there.
No.
We've got 2 more bonus questions because it's fun. Good fun trivia. Can you tell me the mistake?
Because I say so.
Yeah, because I say so. Can you tell me the mistake that was almost fatal for Rory McIlroy's chances on the final day? Do you remember it?
Yes, he didn't set his alarm and he was almost late for his tee time. He had to be escorted by police to get no warm-up.
I chuckled. I wasn't going to use this, but I chuckled. It was like the story that I clicked on as I was going through it. Such a rookie mistake. He read the tee times. He read it as 12:25 Eastern time. He thought he was on Eastern time, which he wasn't. He was on Central time. It was a whole hour the other way. So he turned up. He got to the clubhouse 11 minutes before tee time.
Yeah, no warm up, straight to the first tee, and then goes and wins his match. So
very Sunday League.
Who needs a warm up?
Final one. Who was the only European player to go unbeaten for the weekend?
Who? Say that again.
Tim's had enough.
Tim's bolted for the final question.
Pinned it again. Who was the only European player to go unbeaten for the weekend? Running back through that list.
Yeah, I am. I'm gonna go.
Be people
Rory.
Out.
Rory?
No, someone who always delivers. Ian Poulter.
Oh,
4-0 over the weekend. Tim's back.
Did you hear the answer?
I didn't hear the question or the answers, but I definitely would have got them all right. So
yeah, the final question. The final question was who won all their points.
Medina.
Only European to do it.
Chris didn't get it.
This is one person.
Yeah,
just one person in Team Europe went unbeaten the whole weekend.
Poulter, surely.
Yeah,
correct. Yeah. Nailed it. Never in doubt.
Never in doubt.
Well, just because he's literally the poster boy almost of that Ryder Cup.
He is. You're right.
Just delivers. Class. Honestly, I thought about it. This was why I threw this whole segment in, because I realised when doing the research about the Abu Dhabi Champs that the Ryder Cup is this year, and then I started getting really excited about it. So we had to create a segment on the Ryder Cup.
I'm pleased to be.
Chaps, that about wraps us up for this week. Anything you want to add?
No, all from me.
Nothing for me.
Awesome. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you soon.
Catch you later.
Cheers.